Welcome to BookWorthy, where we talk about the heart behind the books your kids are reading. Today, we're talking with author and lifetime book lover, Jeff Maxam, and his book, Smoke and Mirrors. This upper middle grade fantasy follows young Stuart, who is suddenly sent to Devon boarding school, which leads him into a dangerous new world of dark secrets, ancient mysteries, and dragons. This book was a finalist in the 2024 Realm Makers Aurora Contest in 2 categories, so I can't wait to talk with Jeff about this mysterious adventure. Welcome to BookWorthy, Jeff.
Thank you, Valerie. Appreciate you having me on.
I'm excited to chat. I'm a fan of all things kind of fantasy and dragons, so it's your book was definitely a fun read. I enjoyed it. But before we get started, we got to do our random question of the week, which is, which Hobbit of the Lord of the Rings series, Frodo, Sam, Pippin, or Merry, best represents your personality?
I think it would have to be Frodo, because he was like a combination of being kind of a homebody, but also being adventurous. And I think that sums me up pretty well.
He's definitely a character's like, okay, kind of that reluctant hero. Like, all right, the responsibility of getting something done, definitely a big personality.
Yeah.
I was thinking about this question and I was like, there's definitely similarities between Frodo and Sam and Pippin and Merry, just kind of the personality types. I was like, if I look at me and my husband's a Pippin, which is, this is the way we're going to do it. And I'm a Merry, where I'm like, let's just do this. And It's kind of funny how personalities play out in different characters. So too fun. Well, Jeff, tell us a little bit about your book, Smoke and Mirrors.
Well, at its core, it's about handling life's trials. And how to do it and how not to do it. So the main character, Stuart, is a really kind of spunky, talented kid. His uncle is a stage magician, like a professional stage magician. And so he taught Stuart all that he knows. And so Stuart is kind of thrust in this really awful situation where he's taken from a very comfortable family life and kind of catapulted into this really horrible school, like you mentioned, called Devon. And being kind of the mind of being an escape artist, his idea is, well, I'm going to escape from Devon. So that's kind of where things start. It doesn't proceed too well for him and is complicated by getting neck deep in lots of big dragon problems along the way.
It's a very interesting story. And, you definitely hit all those classic middle school problems, even in this unique setting. And, just how Stuart is faced with bullies and being put into a different location that he doesn't want to be. And even like the hints that his parents know what's going on at the school, but he doesn't. It's fun to walk through Stuart's story and just to be so relatable to my own middle school trauma.
Yeah. Well, this is partially based on my own experience in middle school, which was almost exactly like his. My life was really great up until about 12. And then our family moved and I got put into this middle school that was awful. Just like night and day. And that middle school, which I will not name, also started with D. So that was part of the inspiration for Devon.
I know as writers, we kind of insert little things into our stories that are just almost healing for us. Like we're going to walk through this trauma once again.
Right.
Are you much of a magician yourself, Jeff?
No, not at all. I would love to be, but in the course of writing the story, I did a bunch of research and Penn and Teller, lots of other magicians, YouTube websites and so on, and history, Houdini and so on. But I tried some of the tricks and I'm just not very dexterous. I don't know what it is. My hands don't do what they're supposed to do and the coin doesn't cooperate. So I wouldn't say that I'm great at it, but I would love to be. I think stage magic is really cool and interesting, but I'm not that.
It is always very interesting. It's fun to kind of walk through the thinking process of those types of tricks that Penn and Teller do. And, even like they have what is it? They have a show where you're trying to trick Penn and Teller.
Yeah.
I was like, that's always fun to watch. Now, Stuart, how do dragons play into Stuart's story?
Very prominently.
Just in fact,
I think one thing good to know is that the story isn't really set in our world. It's like a close cousin. So the actual background, the creation story and everything are very different than ours. But there's a lot of similarities, but it's not quite the same world that we live in. And so that's something to bear in mind. But there is a history, like a prehistory involving an era of dragons. And they had a kind of a fall and have been dormant for some time. And so But that's not the case anymore. At the time where this story takes place, they're starting to wake up again. And it's going to be really bad for the world if that happens in the wrong way.
What is it about dragons that makes them such, I don't know, so prevalent in books, especially for middle grade?
Yeah, I heard somebody say that the two things that sell kids' books are dragons and dinosaurs. And I think that we have a fascination with it, and you can look across cultures all over the world, and there's stories and legends about dragons or dragon-like creatures. So there's something about them that captivates us. And I think for me, there's just something, when I think of fantasy or otherworldliness, the dragon is like the archetypical symbol for that, this creature that flies and breathes fire and has magical power and long life kind of there. And, there's lots of different representations of dragons being either good or evil. I think in the West, they're more considered your evil smog types. But I've always thought of them as really interesting villains, a combination of great intelligence with great evil and how dangerous that combination is. But I think there's lots of flavors of dragons in Smoke and Mirrors. So you will definitely have a smog type guy, and you have a lot of other different personalities ranging from each side of the spectrum.
I think what's captivating about your book is that you do kind of see dragons in a different light. Like they do have personalities. They have more of a human element to them. And, but with that mysteriousness that just keeps us wanting to read more. So what was it like being involved in the Realm Makers Contest, or the Aurora Contest?
I'm really thankful for that because I had been writing since about 2017. And you know how it is. It can be pretty lonely. When you're first starting out, you're trying to learn the craft, and that's quite a challenge. And I think a lot of people are like us who are big readers and grow up reading, get to the point where you think about, well, I'd like to write a book. And I could, because I've read all these books, and some of them really are not that great. And if they can get published, I can get published. And as you get into it, you start to realize how much more difficult it is to write than to read. And so I was working through that years, going to conferences, reading things, looking at videos, reading craft books. But I think the Realm Makers Conference was kind of a turning point for me, because, not the conference, but the contest, the Aurora Contest, because it was a validation that I was at least heading in the right direction. That the story did well enough in 2 categories. It finaled in one, and it got the first prize in the middle grade. It was a huge help, real wind in my sails. And I think at that point, that's when I started moving forward seriously with the publishing. So I really am grateful for Realm Makers for hosting that contest and for what an opportunity it was for me. And I know that that's going on right now, in fact, Aurora. And so there's a lot of other aspiring writers who are involved with that. And there's a lot of talent out there that has yet to be discovered, I think.
I love seeing what Realm Makers is doing in bringing fantasy into the Christian space, and that they're not these opposing viewpoints. There's been in the last 10, 15 years that fantasy and religion couldn't go hand in hand, and it's kind of forgetting the origins of stories itself, as stories started as communicating, truths about the gospel, and, using our innate need for stories to communicate gospel truths, like the robe and Ben-Hur, like these, great, huge stories that were so popular, all have a little element of Christ in it. And it's fun to see publishers kind of getting a sense oh yeah, we can have fantastical stories that still have good biblical truth in them. So it's really fun. Now, Jeff, what do you hope to communicate to kiddos with this book?
Well, I think back on your book, So You Wrote Beneath the Hood. And so you're trying to talk about, if I understood that correctly, how easy it is to be tempted to do the easy thing instead of the right thing. And so you can tell a kid that, you can be counseling Johnny or Susie saying, I know it might be hard to do, but you should do it. And those are good words, and that's true. But to be able to illustrate that with a story it's more fun for a kid. It's more impactful, and it sticks with them for longer. And so I think a lot of writers, like you, I'm trying to do the same kind of thing. I'm trying to communicate a powerful truth in a way that will be engaging and fun and memorable, and will have a long-lasting effect on that person's life. And this is what happened with me. I mean, the Chronicles of Narnia were more than stories to me. They were actually, the Lord used them in my conversion. So I think that it's important to, and also, you think about how Jesus taught through parables, that those are, to me, among the most powerful and memorable ways that he had of teaching truth. So I'm trying to do what C.S. Lewis did so well in the Chronicles of Narnia, where there's these truths that he illustrates, like, say, for example, we're all lost in our sin and we can't be saved. There's nothing that we can do to save ourselves, no matter how we try by our own works or whatever. And you've got that picture in The Voyage of the Dawn Treader where Eustace is he's been turned into a dragon. He doesn't like it, obviously, and he wants to undragon himself. So he tries to take his own sharp claws and tear his skin off. And he keeps doing it, doesn't do anything. But then Aslan comes along and does the job for him. And it hurts, but Aslan is able to undragon him and bring him back into his actually a new life. And so, you can say those kinds of words about, how is a person saved and what's required, and they'll all be good words. But to be able to illustrate it in such a beautiful and memorable way, like with Eustace's undragoning, is what I'm trying to accomplish as well in the books, in the story that I'm writing.
I love that. And C.S. Lewis's Chronicles of Narnia, being very impactful in my own life too. And it's neat to hear you talking about The Voyage of the Dawn Treader and Eustace, because usually The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe gets kind of center stage because there is such a heavy gospel message in there. But it is so neat to look at the other books and all the amazing truths that are expressed in, The Last Battle and The Silver Chair and, The Voyage of the Dawn Treader and Prince Caspian and those types of things that you're just like, there's so much richness to this story. You can see why it's held its ground for as long as it has, and that people want to write like that. Now, when did your writing journey begin, Jeff?
I've been kind of writing on and off my whole life, but I would say originally I wanted to be an animator, a cartoonist and animator. And I actually moved out to Hollywood when I was in my early 20s with like $2,000 and a bag and no friends, no place to stay, no nothing. And so after about 6 months and a major earthquake later, I ended up moving back to North Carolina, where I live now, and going into the master's program for library science. So then I got married and started having a family, and that just kind of was the center stage for a while. But I remember one period where my kids were little, and I started doing this thing where I would tell them these stories just before bed. And they were total nonsense. I had no preparation or anything like that. It was about this Jedi Knight who had a living wig that he wore, and he had a pink lightsaber made in China and stuff like that. And so the kids would just, as silly as it sounds, it was just total stream of consciousness. But the kids loved it and looked forward to it. And to this day, they're in their 20s, they still talk about it. So that was kind of like giving me a taste of what the power of storytelling, even though it was super silly and everything like that. What could I do if I tried to do something more disciplined? And so several more years passed by and everything, but I ended up just through various circumstances, like I had a job performance review, which said that my writing skills were very good. It's like, oh, okay. And then I read a series of books that are very popular books, but they have kind of a dark ending. Like I was really into them, but then I got to the end. It's like, this is like everybody's at the end of it's either dead or crazy or scarred in some way. And so it's like, I'm a happy ending kind of guy. And as a Christian, I think we all should be, because we have a great hope to look forward to. So after having read that and kind of just seeing the prevailing sense of the darkness that you see so much in the literary world, I wanted to do my part, if I could, to see if the Lord would use me to try to bring some light and hope into the world by, writing something. And so that's kind of the genesis of it. Started, I think 2017 is when I really started writing seriously in a disciplined way.
Very fun. And now, have you tried to animate this Jedi with the talking wig?
No, my cartooning skills have grown very rusty through the years. But yeah, they say, yeah, Dad, you need to write a book about McWig. So maybe some. I'm feeling really silly.
Sounds fun. I know my boys, my silly boys would just die for something like that. So don't put it down too far.
I think I might get a call from the Disney Corporation saying, yeah,
Maybe so. They are pretty strict on those things, aren't they? Well, Jeff, what is your favorite book other than the Bible?
It's The Silver Chair, which is,
Okay.
you had mentioned that the Chronicles of Narnia, generally speaking, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe gets center stage, but it is a wonderful book, but it's not my favorite. That's probably maybe my third or fourth, actually. But the silver chair, there was something about the setting in that one in which I think there's a lot of underground time in the silver chair. That point in the silver chair where the kids in Puddle Glom are in these endless caverns, and they come across this kind of bioluminescent cave that's full of giants and creatures. That really captured my imagination as a kid. And that's one reason that a lot of Smoke and Mirrors is underground, I think. And this was kind of tipping a hat to a silver chair. Much of the action is about 2/3 of the book, I think, is underground.
What is it? I think what C.S. Lewis will tip his hat to you, and for certain.
Yeah.
Well, what can we expect next from you, Jeff?
Well, I was working on a science fantasy, but then I thought, there's a number of loose ends with Smoke and Mirrors, so I'm actually have started a sequel to Smoke and Mirrors, and it's going to be told from the perspective of a different character, like a character that is in Smoke and Mirrors, but not Stuart. So Stuart's not the main character in the sequel, and
Okay.
You will not be able to guess who the main character is in the sequel if we were here 1,000 years. So, but it is somebody that was in the original.
I might have to go back and read and try my guess. Too fun. I've enjoyed it. It's been a unique turn in seeing sequels and series that are from different points of view. Kind of walking through a similar story, but it's been a new trend that has been really unique to take similar events and look at it through different personalities and different actions and emotions. And I think that's a really unique element that is kind of trendy right now, I suppose.
Mm-hmm.
Very fun. Well, where can people find out more about you and your books, Jeff?
They go to my website, which is jeff-maxam.com. I'm on Instagram, so it's Jeff Maxam 5. Number 5. And Smoke and Mirrors is now available on Amazon, so that would be a place to look as well. And the publisher's website, so I publish through Endgame Press, and that's an excellent publisher. They've got, in addition to Smoke and Mirrors, there's a lot of other really family-friendly books that are available on there. I know maybe your friend, a mutual acquaintance, Lori Scott, is also published through Endgame, and I've read her books and really love them too. So I really appreciate what they're doing at Endgame.
Most definitely a very unique group of folks wanting to do God's work in publishing, which is really fun to see and watch them grow for certain.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Jeff, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you. It's been my pleasure.
And thank you for joining Jeff and me on this episode of the BookWorthy podcast. Check the show notes for any books or links that we discussed, and let us know in the comments which Hobbit of the Lord of the Rings series, Frodo, Sam, Pippin, or Merry, best represent your personality. And help other parents discover BookWorthy by leaving a review and sharing it with friends. Happy reading!